So in television, there's a lot of voices sometimes, you know, from writers who are now associate producers and directors and execs. How do you deal with clashing notes? If you get a note that clashes with someone else's, is there a hierarchy you go to, or do you just kind of lose
right for
one?
The film.
Yeah.
Whatever's right for the film, I would say.
It just depends on who you work with. Certain people, you know, when they say this gets done, then that's what happens. You know, it depends on what the relationships are and the dynamic in the cutting room.
And it's trust, isn't it? When you haven't worked with someone before, you have to get that trust to once.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people, you're an idiot until proven otherwise, I find. And, well, that's how I always feel. I'm not sure if that's the case. I'm paranoid anyway. But, you know, so yeah, that's it.
But there's and that's a pertinent note to television, I think, in that, you know, you haven't got that. If you're working on film, where especially if it's got a cinema release, you know, the audience pay to come, and you've got a certain amount of leeway to set your story up. Whereas with television, in a very competitive market, you know, often those notes come back and reflect that, so that there's an element of you've got to hit the ground running. The episode's got to, you know. I mean, you touched upon episode 1s. They're notoriously very, very difficult because there's so much setup, you know, character, story, that, you know, often that gets in the way of telling the story, I find. You know, and I think F1's always the really tricky ones.
There's a lot of scrutiny on them.
That's the other thing, is everyone is on it.
Everyone's on there, and then by 3 I was like, yeah, it's fine.
And also, but by episode 3, you haven't got those issues with episode 1, because those characters are set up, the situations are set up. You know, you can just get into the story and you're off and running. Whereas with episode 1, they want to know, well, where are we? Who are the people involved? Where are the main characters? So that, and all of that often gets in the way of telling the story.
Yes,
I find.
And also in comedies, you have to tell jokes as well, so sometimes it's even harder. Cool. We should look at another clip, I think. Una, let's have a look at yours, if that's all right.
Yeah, so this is an excerpt from The Missing, directed by Tom Shankland, and it was actually shot. What I liked about this was he directed all 8 episodes, and then I assembled all 8 for the present tense, because they actually shot in real time. So say we did the present tense from February until April, end of April, using sort of the winter months, and then we shot the past tense from April until June. So, and then 2 other actors joined me, and we worked the whole 8 episodes. Fiona Colbeck and Danielle Parber. So this is, I thought that was quite exciting at the time, that he was able to do that, and you could actually work through the whole story. So it's a man who's lost his child, and this is the moment of missing.
Let's have a look at the clip, please. Still real palpitations watching that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted. So I saw a film years ago, if anyone knows, Satyajit Ray's The World of Apu. Do you know that
I've
film?
not seen it, I know of
It's
it.
really
It's on my list.
It's on your list. Well, it's really worth watching. And so that's a little homage to World of Apu, because when the father comes back from the market, his daughter's dead, and when he's taking all his presents out of his bag, and he's saying to the wife, I have these for the daughter, and she's just standing like immovable, like a statue. And then you never see her face, she's always in rear view, and then they just cut to the foreground, and she opens her mouth and they cut the sound, and she just screams, and it's a musical instrument, an Indian instrument that does the scream for her, so it's not a verbal scream, it's a musical scream. So that's why we just thought if we could use that high-pitched note at that moment after his breath, because a lot of the stuff when he was running around, it's all ad-libbed. And if you were actually to hear him running to those people saying, "Hey, have you seen my son? He was just here. He was a little yellow," it wouldn't work. So it's sort of more like what you did with the sound as well. I think all editors try and use sound creatively to give you that visceral feel, so that you can be in his shoes. And I think Tom and Ulla Bratt-Berkland, who's the DOP, they did a brilliant idea, which was just shooting it so ordinarily, because it was such a horrific thing. So it's told through past and present. When we go back to the past was shot exactly like the present. They didn't put like a golden hue or anything. It was just told straight. And we also had made the decision in early stages, because I'd worked with Tom before, that we would not overuse music, and we'd really use restraint, so that we wouldn't bring music in too quickly. We'd really let the audience, sort of try and lean forward and feel what he's feeling, and the subjective point of view, obviously.
It's like I said with the music, but what I found what I found with the sound and the music at the beginning, which was really interesting, is I've seen a lot of things where, I've seen a lot of shows where they try and tell a passage of time and it's it's like a montage.
Yeah.
But you did a really wonderful thing of just giving us 3 shots that show us like the day, the evening, and and then we're into the night time. Very simply, that just allowed us to relax. So they're on holiday, and you gave us that feeling of everyone being relaxed, so that when they went into the bar, you start to get that feeling of inevitability, something horrible was going on. Was it just shot that way? Did you really?
No, that was deliberate. Yeah, so we created those because obviously you have a huge amount of footage. So we could have had like huge scenes of that whole day, but yeah, we just thought if we could do that tableau style, exactly what you said. Then when he starts going into the bar, and also withholding cuts, not doing too many cuts. So when you walk in, you're sort of walking in with them, so that growing sense of unease. And even when he realises the kid is gone, I did a few jump cuts, but then letting him walk out and let him go back and pick up the bag. Now, I had the close-ups that you could have cut to him seeing the bag and toy left behind, but we just withheld, not over-telling too much, so that the audience did have to sort of lean in and watch. And same thing with the bathroom sequence. We never put music on it, but sometimes in TV there is sort of an easiness of just putting music on too quickly. So we really were trying to just hold back on all of that. So I'm glad it worked for you.
Good, yeah. Again, it's just when you're in the bathroom, there's something just holding on that shot for so long.
Yeah,
with no music, it's just the reality of it.
It's the reality of it, exactly. And that was, I think that was Tom's big note. He just wanted this horrible story of what happened to that child to be told sort of in an ordinary way. So we were sort of saying films like French Connection. He did use 2 cameras at times, but he did try and limit it, that the second camera was doing other things, was picking up. So say in the room when they're watching the football match, that we as an audience were also like looking over those heads trying to see the football match. So we also get sucked into the TV. And that also, I should say, is Jack and Harry Williams, the writers. They wrote beautiful scripts. And in the script it was saying that Tony gets momentarily distracted by the TV and the kid is gone. And that shot, by the way, I got such a funny email from a friend of mine saying, how did you paint the kids going out or whatever? And that was just the look of B camera down. And he
just the sheer, wow.
Someone just pulled him out and I found it. It was sort of so it wasn't by design or anything. It was supposed to be just on the telly, but it just looked good. So
cool. Let's move on to your clip, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course it is.
Would you like to introduce it?
Yes, it is a clip from season 5, Game of Thrones, and it was my first collaboration with Miguel Sapochnik, who is a fantastic director, and he really pushes me, and I really love working with him. And I think, the first day of dailies that came in, I was like, I've been waiting for these for a long time, and so I had a lot of fun cutting this. I don't know how long the clip is, but we're in the middle of the battle. Our hero's gone to basically a refugee camp to try and get people on ships, and there's something bad behind a stockade fence trying to get them. Those of you who have seen it will know what's going on. Those of you who haven't won't know what's going on. But that was kind of the intention, because the mandate from the director was, this isn't like a battle with structure, this is a massacre, and it's about survival.
Cool. Let's have a look at the clip, please. Love the giant.
Yeah.
So there's so much to talk about. There's a lot of CGI in that. Do you have a process of balancing the CGI, or is it, or is there just less than I think there is?
No, obviously the first big wide shot with all the ships, there was that was filmed in a quarry in Northern Ireland, and all the plates were done in Iceland afterwards and put in. I can't actually, but I think we had the previs in the back.
Right.
So there's a real quarry with real water, and that's a real shot. But the background and the ships and the rough seas are all put, and the snow are all put in later, and the smoke are all added later. But there was a lot of smoke added on set. There's a load of Atmos on set, and I think we probably used yeah, the previs and just did a dodgy map and fixed it up that way, which is how we deal with most of it. The Giants filmed on a green screen, and we have those elements. We use the previs Giant. What I do with the Giant, we get previs to give us the green screen element, and we pop him in to the shot, and then they pick up the Giant during filming. So we add him in, and we do a rough comp, and obviously VFX take over and do it, you know, much better. And so yeah, that's it. And yeah, and there's the wide shots. I don't think there's tons of CGI. I mean, obviously there's actors in green suits, which is the one interesting thing actually I found, because in green suits their arms are flashing through the screen. And it really catches your eye. And when they came back, they're quite camouflaged and go into the background. So actually, we added a lot of, quite a lot of head and tail frames to stuff because you couldn't see it as well once the effects have come back. So that was a note to self, and we got green flashing through the screen, that it's not actually going to catch people's eyes as well. But no, there's not loads of CGI. Well, there probably is, but when I'm editing it, I think it's all in your head and your imagination that you soon forget it's not there, because you know what's going to be there and you've seen it that many times. But yeah, I don't find it difficult.
So the other thing I really like is quite often filmmaking, you'll see people when they have a shot which they think is important. So say when the sword is first flung out of Jon Snow's hand, quite often filmmakers will focus on the sword to sort of say, look, he's lost his sword. But you're very quick with those shots. You sort of hold those back and you throw them away. Is that a conscious decision, do you think?
No, not necessarily, because I think you've seen it, they put a big clang on there, so keep up. And I think it's about flow. That sequence actually was, they did that fight in the stunt tent with the stunt guys because they're worried about the big guy in the suit, when he's supposed to move around really quickly and you're not supposed to get away from him, but he's basically a stunt guy in a suit, and we don't do speed ramps and stuff on that show. So that kind of started quickly keeping ahead of everything was a way of getting him moving around, because you don't see him too much, you don't see him prepared to hit too often apart from at the end, because it's a whole thing of like, we want this to feel like it's quick, and before you look round, he's there again. And I think that's possibly why that
so sort of
felt like
that
from
to you. Jon Snow's point of view,
but
where he's just all of a sudden that guy's about to kill him once again. And
then we use the same old trick. Find a look at it.
And the other thing I really liked is at the beginning you have the big overhead shot of all the ships going away, and then you've got them coming through the walls, and then you sort of go, okay, there's some battle starting, and then you reveal this, which is almost like a mirror of the ships going away, all the horribleness coming. And then we go to Jon Snow. So then we go back to his. So was that your decision to keep Jon to settle? Because it's almost like a setup. It's like you've got a section of a setup, and then you get on with Jon Snow running around. Was that?
Yeah, that was all my idea. I think that's what happened there. I think that was the only sort of some second unit stuff that we wanted to show that when these guys come through the wall, you're screwed, basically, which is what all that's taking in, and that's probably overkill on the killing, but it was supposed to be. The fact is, and then you go to the wide shot and you think that's bad. There's thousands more coming, by the way, so you really are
just
in the do.
Cool.